we were introduced processed foods over 50 years ago with again, like things like stevia and sucralose and all those things, which blunt GLP-1. So we inherently created a problem to where now we have all of these cravings, and it's been proven that processed foods change your palate. And then now we're trying to give you the solution, which is, again, a drug, a pharmaceutical. Everybody wants to live longer and more prosperous. Longevity, biohacking, all of those cool new terms are really, and longevity is not a new term, but just they have been basically beaten down and beaten down and beaten down, especially on social media recently. And although I love it because I think it actually is trending us more towards health, sometimes what happens is then you end up getting into this category where you're vegan, you're carnivore, you're pescatarian, you can keep going down, keto. And when you go into that rabbit hole of that community, they are going to give you the most convincing evidence of why their diet works or why their hack works. And a lot of the times at the end, yes, they are selling you something. No doubt that is something that happens. But it's hard. So how do you decipher all of this information that's out there? And what is really necessary? I had this conversation today, actually this morning. I was training a client about 5:30 a.m. and we were talking about it, and just in terms of longevity. And she asked me specifically about one strategy, and if I thought, well, does this really work? Or what supplement should I take? Does this really work? And what I said to her was, if you can think of this in a longevity perspective, what we want to be able to do is actually just go back closer to nature. And I'm sure you've all heard this before, go back ancestral, whole food diet, all these things. But it is seriously, it's true. The most scientifically backed, without non-bias, but scientifically backed research points us back to nature. It really actually does. It also points us to what I would consider myself as a protein-centric diet. So I will put the major emphasis on protein. I had a lady today, again, another client who has PCOS, and we were talking, and her conversation led to what the doctor told her to do to reduce inflammation and to basically heal quicker. And it was, oh, you actually need to eat more protein. But yet our RDA tells us that we only need like 0.7, 0.8 kilograms per pound. It's like, we're so underfed protein, it's really honestly scary. The FDA has told us we need 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 50 million grams of carbohydrates a day and grains. Well, that's not necessarily really great for you either. Some grains like brown rice have anti-nutrients in there where you actually can't even really absorb it. Or some plants actually have like nightshades. They actually have toxins in there that are defending themselves, which is what they do in nature, so that you won't eat it, but we're still eating it. Now, not everybody's gonna have the same response. Some people eat them and they're fine, but a lot of people eat them and they don't. And then a lot of people are eating them and they're not even sure why they're sick, because they're like, well, I'm eating more of a whole food diet, but yet you're getting sick. Now, that is not to say that all plants are bad. I'm not saying that either. Just like I'm not gonna tell you that carnivore is the only way you should eat either. But for me, it's like I choose a protein-centric whole food diet. Those are things that are really, really important. Is I'm trying to limit as much processed food as possible, while I am trying to make sure that I get as much animal-based protein as possible. And lean meat, yes, is really beneficial, but you also need fat. But if you are getting good amounts of fat, then you are going to have, with healthy fat, you're gonna actually be better off. But again, then it goes back to, well, what oil's better? Okay, well, no, you can't have saturated fat cholesterol, right? So I understand, man, this stuff gets so confusing because there's so many different things out there. There's so many different experts. Everyone's telling you something different. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna simply state what I think is the most important, especially when it comes to longevity and it becomes this biohacking, because to me, this is where the literature and the most scientific research has actually come to and has shown. Number one, I do believe in a whole food diet. I think that is probably one of the most important things to do. I don't agree with the calories in, calorie out community, which is mostly in my fitness industry trend of gym and whatnot. Although it is, calories play a role, absolutely. They're neglecting things like your gut. They're not paying attention to how inflammation is in the body. So if I'm eating just on calories, I could be eating all processed calories and I'm going to have cravings. I'm going to have inflammation So that's not gonna be a good thing. Your gut's gonna get jacked up. And if your gut's bad, not only is your immune system bad, but you're also not gonna be able to burn fat, even if you're eating in a deficit, because of the fact of the inflammation and your body's holding on and all of these other, the mitochondrial becomes unhealthy. Like there's so many different cascading effects that happen when you're eating poorly. So I first will tell everyone is prescribed to a whole food diet as much as possible. The next thing I say is protein centric. Protein centric for me means eat more protein. You should get 1 gram per 1 pound of body weight. Now, if you're 350 pounds and you're trying to lose 50 pounds and you need to, or even 100, then eat at least your goal weight in grams per pound. And I think that's one thing that will also eliminate a lot of the other carbohydrates in your diet, which you don't need a ton of. I'm not an anti-carb guy. I actually think it plays a role. For example, when you eat carbs, yes, insulin comes up and everyone treats insulin, so blood sugar, as the worst thing in the world. But if you never actually eat it, your body doesn't really know how to use it, right? Your body will create it, yes, from meat and protein, and if you're going full keto for a prolonged period of time, but most people aren't doing that. And again, that's gonna prescribe to one style of eating. So for me, you do want some carbohydrates, berries, honey, those sweet potatoes, even potatoes are okay. I would just peel them, but those are all okay to have. But again, it goes back to whole food. How did nature give it to us? That's what we should be eating. A good example of a problem that was created, right? And then, which is through artificial foods. And then now we're gonna sell you a solution is Ozempic, right? GLP-1. GLP-1 can actually be stimulated with whole foods. Well, now we have all of these drugs through peptides and whatnot that are stimulating GLP-1, so we have less cravings. But we were introduced processed foods over 50 years ago with again, like things like stevia and sucralose and all those things, which blunt GLP-1. So we inherently created a problem to where now we have all of these cravings, and it's been proven that processed foods change your palate. And then now we're trying to give you the solution, which is, again, a drug, a pharmaceutical, or a peptide, right? And unfortunately, that's just the way our society is at, or the stage of our society right now. But we really could fix that if we just went to a whole food diet and started eating more protein. Then the last thing I'll say, we want to reduce inflammation. We want to reduce stress. So meditation, all of those things do work. Putting your feet on soil really does work. It brings down inflammation. So grounding, it's a really popular trend. It's really helpful. I do think people will now do cold plunging and all of those things. I'm sure you've heard of that. That also shows that it can be effective, but people will cold plunge and then eat like crap all day. Is that really anything gonna help you at all? So the whole lifestyle approach is something that I think everyone needs to focus on. And the number one lifestyle hack that anyone should be focused on, more than cold plunging, more than a sauna, is simply moving more. The most important thing you can do to increase your life expectancy, at least in my opinion and from what I've seen and read and research, is basically move more. The more you're moving, the more your body will start burning, and that's where life longevity increases. So that is something that I think everyone should be doing, is whole foods, protein centric, and just moving more. Go on walks, go on hikes, walk after each meal. That would be wildly beneficial. Definitely do resistance training. But if you resistance train 1 hour out of the day and sit the rest, you're going to basically not get that much benefit. So you want to resistance train, lift weights to build muscle. It's absolutely essential. But then again, you still need to move more in the day. So when you lift in your morning session and you're working at your desk, get up for lunch, take a 10-minute walk. After dinner, take a 10-minute walk. Those things would be wildly successful at reducing your inflammation, reducing stress, and again, promoting longevity. So although this topic can be very confusing and there's millions of things that I could talk about, again, for me, it's really important to get back to nature, and that's whole foods, protein, and just move more.